We had a meeting with Mr. President. There are prospects, and we need to develop our cooperation. We have agreement about free trade between EAEU with Iran, Iraq, and Serbia. And the same agreement will be signed with Mongolia. There are also negotiations with Indonesia and some other countries. Are there any such ideas in Malaysia?
Free trade, and there's no restrictions, and I've assured President Putin last night that whatever avenues being introduced will continue. I mean, we still have good relations with Iran and most of these countries, and if the parameters are right, encouraging free trade, we will pursue. There's no issue at all to my mind. Even now, without the special arrangement, you can see this new wave of interest from both sides in Malaysia and Russia. Now, with the agreement, it would of course further facilitate and assist the business community. In fact, we're inviting delegations representing banks, aerospace industry, and some others to come. And we will. What is important is that my assurance that you will see a faster change, a more positive change in terms of the trade and also exchanges between Malaysia and Russia, and we are determined to record that as soon as possible.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Mr. President, you spoke about the way to solve the problem of the deficit of energy in the Far East that is going to be forecasted. What can you say about electricity generation? Well, it depends on the region. In Siberia, for instance, there is excessive electricity generation, and in the Far East, there is scarcity of energy. So we need to take timely measures. For instance, repair facilities, modernize deeply certain facilities. So we have plans that are being designed. Some of them are already approved. We need to do it on a timely basis and need to establish an economically based plan in this sphere. Concerning energy, there is another question about foreign markets. At the end of the year, the agreement about transit of Russian energy through Ukraine ends, and Ukraine said that it's not going to prolong the contract. What the energy prospects of Europe? Do we need to hear the voices of those who are going to suffer from it? Well, there is the head of Gazprom, just here in the front row. And also I'm going to speak to German Oskovich. They're all here. This is good. They all show interest in the development of their business in the Russian Far East. As for Ukraine, we're not against transferring our energy through Ukraine, because we intend, and Gazprom company intend, to fulfill our obligations to our clients. We have long-term contracts with them. One of the obligatory components of this work is the transit of our energy. We have transit contracts that expires on the 31st of December this year. But if Ukraine doesn't want to prolong these contracts, we cannot make them do that. So our main consumers in Europe do not want to do that, but they support with military products and with finances to Ukraine. But Ukraine does not want to transit our energy, our gas. That is why the volume of the gas that we provide to Europe will reduce. We will use Turkish flow or other gas pipelines that are used for domestic consumption, but they will help to support energy stability in Europe. But that is their choice. We don't know how this is going to affect them. We have our own issues, and they should dedicate themselves to their own issues. I don't know how to characterize all of this, how to characterize this attitude to their own partners and allies. This is strange for me. I cannot understand that. They blew up our gas pipeline on the bottom of the Baltic Sea. Two pipelines of Nord Stream 1 and one pipeline of Nord Stream 2. Why the German government cannot agree with that with us? It means that one gas pipeline, 27.5 cubic tons of gas can go through one pipeline of Nord Stream. Why wouldn't they open it? Why wouldn't they use the gas pipeline that we have? They can use the gas that they receive from the Turkish pipeline, is okay, but they cannot use the gas pipeline that goes through the bottom of the Baltic Sea. This is something absurd. Why? Well, if they don't want to, okay, we will raise our supplies to other regions of the world. We'll do it consistently, consecutively. For instance, speaking about China, even before the conflicts, before Ukraine, there were very good supplies to China, and next year we're going to reach 38 cubic meters to China from here, from Sakhalin, from Vladivostok, 10 more million cubic meters. And it does not concern Ukraine. These are our agreements that were reached many years ago. We are implementing all of that, and we are going to develop liquefaction of natural gas. There are experts who know about that even better than everyone else, and the share of Russia's supply of LNG is increasing. It is not really big. We wanted it to be bigger, but despite any complexities that other countries try to create for us, we are still going to supply LNG. Some countries try to impede the development of our energy, but this is not possible because the production of energy is at a limit. That is why all these actions are impossible. Let's imagine that tomorrow everything is going to be closed. Gas, oil that we supply. The world economy is not going to overcome this. The prices are going to skyrocket, but people will still buy it. This is the cause. When those who show us do not wish us anything well, when they do that, they do not do this from their heart, and they are not very intelligent if they do that. They're guided only by their arrogance and their self-interest. We are going to solve our problems. If they don't want to cooperate with us, then they will lose money. We see what is happening in Europe, and the situation is on the brink of recession in some of the countries, because those who provide energy resources to them, first of all, think about their own interests, of their own national interests. Because the prices, they provide 50 or 60% more, and first of all, I'm speaking about gas. Of course, the European economy, first of all, Germany, that is based on our energy, is really affected, and many industries just close. But this is not our choice. We are ready. You could agree with Poland for Poland to open their pipelines because they exist. Yamal, Western Europe, it was closed by Poland, and now Ukraine closes another route. As for the Nord Stream 2, it is not being used If they don't want to, well, that's their choice. Yes, we're going to have a less inflow of finances, but then we'll use it inside of our country.
Well, we will be willing to develop the so-called social gasification. Well, I'd like to specify about gasification. Since we've heard Mr. Miller mentioning the amount of gas being transported through the North Stream pipeline, I wanted to ask you about those projects that are being implemented in Malaysia with Iran and China. Does Gazprom have prospects to recover the current volume of gas supplies to the foreign markets? Well, I've mentioned that already. We're about to reach design capacity of supplies to the People's Republic of China. As for the supplies to the Malaysia, well, Iran specifically, I want to make it very clear that is not directly related to the events in Ukraine. It's just that the economies of those countries are actively developing. They therefore require additional resources. It's as simple as that. Again, take example of Uzbekistan. It is a well-known fact. The incremental growth of population is 1 million people a year. Just imagine it. 37 million people are already living in this country. Very soon it will be 40 million. The economy is growing. And of course, they have some commitments undertaking at the foreign markets. Obviously, all of that requires additional resources. It was minus 21 degrees centigrade in Tashkent last winter. That has never happened before, I guess. Obviously, they need more fuel, more energy resources, and we have them available. So we will be coordinating our actions with Turkmenistan, obviously. Iran has long been requesting us to provide supplies. But this is very convenient for us. The reserve is close nearby, and we'll be thinking about that. I believe this is a very doable project. The neighboring markets are huge. I mean, the markets close to Iran, and the opportunities there are colossal, and we will be able to pursue those markets. And of course, we'll be engaging in gas liquefaction projects, and obviously gradually we will be recovering the volume of sales on our side. No doubt on that. And of course, we'll be developing our domestic economy in many regions, and specifically here in the Far East, there is a clear deficit of gas generating capacities, and Gazprom already has plans to merge the European part of gas transporting system and the Far Eastern part, so that we take care of the proper supplies and distribution. We have plans for that. Thank you. Let's continue this conversation about energy. Mr. Ibrahim, Malaysia is the second largest producer of oil and gas in Southeastern Asia. And by the way, the renowned Petronas towers in the capital are named after the largest energy company in your country. What is your current assessment of the situation in the oil and gas market in the world in general, and whether Malaysia is considering any joint project with Russia in energy sector?
We are discussing the issue of energy transition, where I think Russia has an upper hand. We're discussing that. We are, of course, still continuing exploration, because the deadline is, of course, to ease the dependence on traditional dependence on oil or coal. But still, for now, it is important. I mean, we cannot deny the fact that the import of coal from Russia comes about $600 million. So temporarily, this energy is still required until we are able to transition into green energy. But for now, the focus is there. We still remain to be an important player, and we will therefore have some sort of a synergy, working relations, to ensure that the transition into hydrogen, green technology would be of immense benefit in our attempt to progress as a country that's not totally dependent on fuel.
Thank you. President Putin, you mentioned it in your speech that right now we are actively developing various solutions for transportation of energy resources. You were saying that by 2030 you plan to increase this indicator of 150 million tons of goods to be transported through the Northern Sea route. I'm wondering, what is the current progress on construction of infrastructure and actual vessels that will be using and circulating along the Northern Sea route? I know that you visited a shipyard nearby here in Vladivostok. Indeed, this is a question that should be at the very center of our attention, primarily because we need to take care of creating of the necessary infrastructure and capacities to take care of cargo transportation. So those are the vessels carrying cargo and the icebreaker fleet, of course. Russia has capacities of unique icebreakers. We have 34 diesel-driven icebreakers of different classes and 7 nuclear icebreakers that we have right now. 3 are already in construction, and the 4th is to be commissioned in 2025. 7 plus 4 makes it to 11, and 1 more very big icebreaker of unprecedented capacities. As far as I remember, that will be 136,000 horsepowers. Well, if I'm to measure an icebreaker in horsepowers, this is the leader of our fleet, and it is already being constructed here in Vladivostok at the Zvezda shipping yard. And that would provide for year-round operations, especially so that this particular new icebreaker is not just powerful, but also very broad and big in size, and could provide for the whole caravans of vessels to go through the Northern Sea route. We obviously need to build the vessels to carry cargoes, but we'll be also extending the opportunities of the shipbuilding capacities of ours, also in the European part of the country. We've been discussing it just yesterday with Mr. Kostin, the head of VTB Bank, and also the talents that he delegated to the merged shipbuilding corporation. And you're right in saying, indeed, just yesterday, I visited the place that will be used for the construction of the future shipping yard. I'm sure we will get it done. It wasn't easy, but we managed to create the Zvezda shipbuilding yard here. It is important. We need to continue that kind of infrastructure development, construction of seaports, proper maintenance, of course, safety and security of operations of sea vessels, protection of the environment. We have to approach those issues systemically and comprehensively, and I'm convinced our plans will be implemented, especially taking into account the current change happening to the climate. The opportunities of the Northern Sea route are becoming more abundant, and I'm convinced that it will be working the whole year round. This is extremely important for the Russian economy and global economy alike, for our friendly economies, specifically for the economy of the People's Republic of China, who is demonstrating lively interest towards joint work in this area. So we would like to invite all of our partners to join us. Now, we talked about construction. Let's talk about construction of apartments, residential construction here in the Far East. We know that a subsidized mortgage is still available here, despite the fact that it is no longer available in the rest of the country. And I'd like to quote Herman Greff here. The exit of and the completion of the subsidized mortgage is overdue. What do you think? Have we resolved the problem of availability of housing now since we closed the program? Well, we've just heard Mr. Ibrahim quoting Tolstoy and Chekhov. Why are you quoting Herman Greff? Well, is he another great novelist in Russia apparently now? Well, whatever. If we are to talk about construction and residential construction, I do believe we have achieved some outstanding results in construction. We've never seen the construction volume of residential housing. The one we have last year is about 110 million. This is an impressive number, although the target was 120, but 110 is already a very good number. And since the subsidized mortgage loans are no longer available, it would inevitably affect the residential construction market. But I'd like to reiterate that we still have subsidized mortgage for IT experts in the Arctics and in the Far East. But the actions of our financial authorities and the Russian government are aimed at cooling down the market a little bit. Yeah. And I would like to quote Madam Nabiulina in this regard. Yeah, that's true. the governors of the central bank mentioned that. We can't afford to have the market overheated, and we do not want that to badly affect our macroeconomic indicators. But nonetheless, I want to say that we have a very solid backup and a very solid foundation in terms of construction. Well, now, we do not get to quote Mr. Mutko that frequently, but he's still a renowned expert, I have to say, and he knows how to find the right words to express himself. So Mr. Mutko is doing a great job there from all of his heart. Yeah, all of his heart, but most importantly with very good results. And this is not an irony on my side. Indeed, we see an impressive result, 110 million square meters of residential construction commissioned last year. And that is happening thanks to the work of the corporation that Mr. Mutko is leading now. Again, we have some very solid foundation there, 165 million square meters is the amount of construction that we have. So I'm sure next year we will be fine. One more question to you, Mr. President, and then we will move on to other topics. One of the most hotly debated topics lately is that starting from November, there is a new law coming into force legalizing mining of cryptocurrencies. Before we had Federal Law 259 adopted on digital assets. Does that mean that Russia is heading into the area of digital currencies and cryptocurrencies? And should we expect some more legal novelties in this regard? Well, I believe already today Russia is one of the world leaders in terms of mining of cryptocurrencies and bitcoins, and I guess this is due to the surplus of power generating capacities in Siberia. But there are some questions associated with that. We are obviously happy to see that businesses operating in this area is getting some good profits, but nonetheless, the surplus of power generating capacities in Siberia must not become a deficit that could be an interfering factor for development of Siberian regions. Mining is good, but construction of apartments for our citizens, construction of enterprises and factories will all need energy supplies. Those are no less and probably even more important than mining developments. That is why the government has taken a decision that is supposed to structure this process. And as for digital currencies and digital ruble specifically, the decision is already taken by the Central Bank of Russia, and right now we are simply ramping up those volumes. Russian ruble is just one of the types of currencies, a type of a national currency that will be made available for participants of economic operations and Russian citizens alike. Thank you very much. As promised, I'd like to move over to the next topic. Mr. Ibrahim, I'd like to address you. We can't forget about the conflict in the Middle East. Please share with us your vision. What is the exit from the current situation?
As I've consistently said, we cannot use the narrative of many in the media or Western capitals that it all began with the 7th of October, Hamas attack. It all began with colonization. It all began with the Nakba in 1948. It all began because of the reluctance to accept the resolutions of the United Nations consistently, and of continued harassment of settlers in the West Bank. So I think we need to put the narrative right. Do we want a solution? Yes. And I commend, of course, the Russian position, the Chinese position. Foreign Minister Wang Yi have taken initiative, and many countries. And I think the majority of countries have taken a position, including recognition of the state of Palestine. But why is it not happening? Because of the intransigence of Israel, and unfortunately with the total support of the United States. In fact, giving him a standing ovation when atrocities are being committed. That's why I ask my colleagues, even in the West, where's the humanity? Why do you talk about justice? Why do you go and preach to us about human rights and democracy? Why is there contradiction when it comes to treatment of issues happening in the world. And again, what we need in this world now is a consistent, coherent message. Yes, we respect freedom. Yes, we respect the dignity of man, of woman. Yes, we must oppose all forms of colonization. Because what is the issue in Palestine now, not only in Gaza, but all in Palestine, is the issue of dispossession. You conquer, you take people's land, you dispossess, you kill them, you detain them, you take over their houses, you treat them as a open-air prison, and this is known. That is why I know we come from a small country. We know our limits. That's why we thank our dear friends here for their support. But it is creating so much a problem. Not only the Muslim world, but those who believe in freedom and justice. It is creating problems for us. Because people are saying, why are you not doing anything more when people are being killed daily? And that is my point. So I just hope and pray that there is finally sanity will prevail to those who have influence in the world, because they are finally accountable. No country, no person can continue to do this gross injustice and tolerate the atrocities and think they are safe. I don't believe that can ever be accepted. We want justice to all mankind, and of course we cannot deny justice because they have different color or different religion or different creed. Justice means justice for humanity, and it's time that Palestine and Palestinians are treated as human beings, not as slaves or second-class people. Thank you.
Спасибо. Владимир Владимирович.
President Putin, as a follow-up to the issue of the conflict in the Middle East, Moscow has repeatedly conveyed its position to both parties. Do they hear us, both sides of the Palestinian conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I mean? Well, I could repeat everything that our dear guest has just been saying. The position of Russia is not conditioned by the particular situation or particular precedent. Our position has always been based on the positions taken earlier, and those decisions should be at the heart of resolution of any conflict. Here we're talking about establishment of two independent states, and this position is shared by many people in the world, including, as strangely as it may sound, by many people in the United States. But unfortunately, this conflict has not been resolved, and this particular issue is exactly the reason for the current acute conflict. On our side, and by the way, today's problem is largely related to the attempts of the United States of America to have a monopoly of settlement of this conflict, because the United States is not perceived as a country with neutral position regarding this conflict, and this is exactly the problem. But I'd like to reiterate that we are going to do everything in our power, and I was saying that earlier at the meeting with Mahmoud Abbas. He's been to Moscow lately. We are going to do everything possible to make our contribution to settlement and resolution of this long overdue conflict. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next topic. And sorry, as for humanitarian matters, we are doing our best to address the matters related to the hostages that were taken, and I have to say that in this regard, we are achieving certain results, and we are very happy about it, and we'll keep intensifying our efforts and doing that in the future.
Thank you. One more topic. Mr. Ibrahim, in your introduction, you pointed out that Malaysia is the chair of the ASEAN for the future. What will the priorities in working be, and what will you be? How will you be coordinating your efforts as far as Russia is concerned?
Region is the most peaceful in the world right now, and economically most vibrant. The secret is, of course, in centrality is independent foreign policy position. We refuse to be dictated by any powers, and we maintain excellent relations with our neighbors. With Thailand, we are having special economic zone to promote and ensure there is more economic activity in the poorer sectors in north of Malaya and South Thailand. With Singapore, we have a special economic zone in Johor, which would encourage more business and investments. And with Indonesia, we have excellent relations. I was just in Brunei. And even on issues that is considered to be quite contentious, our decision is to continue with bilateral mechanisms, multilateral mechanisms. The only issue that we have to confront is Myanmar. It's not spreading in terms of its military activities, but it's causing some problems because, for example, Malaysia has to contend with 200,000 refugees from Myanmar. And I thought my position as ASEAN chair is, of course, to try and resolve. We don't want to dictate. You see, the problem, the failure sometimes in dealing with Myanmar, it's the military junta. You want to ensure democratic transition. I think what is important for Myanmar is peace. Get all the parties to speak and talk to each other and maintain peace. Then they decide for themselves what form of government they want to have, and do not dictate. And our problem with Myanmar in the past is to have to try and dictate to them what sort of government they should have. So in our 5-point consensus, we think that just respect these fundamental rules, we would move. But on a different note, different level, although we do have growing issues about particularly with the Philippines and China, our position is always to encourage the Philippines to continue to engage actively and try to resolve in the true spirit of ASEAN. And if we need to assist, we will continue to engage with our friends, because we always feel that there is a way for the future. I think more so, taking that position because of centrality, we do not want this region to be, again, a contentious region for the superpowers. If we have a problem in the region, we resolve it in the region. And we do not support any intrusion of other powers into the region. If we have problems, we try and resolve. And that's why I think my presence here in Vladivostok is to convey that message, that I think, contrary to some of the perceptions, we feel that our task is to ensure that we serve our people, that economically it has to be vibrant, and we want to show a new tradition of and diplomacy that engage with most countries, and Russia included. Some countries in the West may have a problem with Russia, they will deal with it. As far as we are concerned, we do not have a problem. We have some issues we want to discuss, we bring it up, you see. So I think we will start that tradition. So in ASEAN cohesion, we want to maintain that sort of relations. We may choose to disagree. I mean, I have very good relations with Premier Li Qiang. Excellent. It does not mean that we can agree on every issue, but we disagree as close friends. They talk about the issue of the more contentious issue with the South China Sea, and they keep on harping. You have a problem with China because of the border. We have a problem with every single country in ASEAN. I mean, those bordering Malaysia, because Malaysia is central. We have a slight border problem with Thailand, with Indonesia, with Singapore, with Brunei, with the Philippines. Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. These are issues that we discuss. It does not in any way seem to be antagonistic. Why is it when it comes to China, you expect us to go and quarrel with them? I think we will continue to negotiate. Yes, we agree, and some issues we disagree. But in my experience now, I've taken over almost 2 years now as Prime Minister, I don't have a problem with China. So why must countries outside our turf insist that you have a problem? I don't. Now you have a problem, you deal with it. So I think that should be the ASEAN position, and to focus on the fundamentals. Yes, on economy, yes, on technology, yes, on the AI, energy, and tourism. And I think it will be a great example of a sub-region that is peaceful and economically vibrant. Thank you.
Спасибо. Господин Джен, у меня к вам вопрос по итогам прошлого года.
Mr. Jen, the question is the trade turnover with ASEAN has reached more than $11.5 billion. As you see now, how do you assess the prospects of economic development of China? For 40 years, we have been conducting a policy of openness. When China has acceded to WTO, it has continued along the lines of the development of cooperation with countries in the sphere of trade. Within quite a number of years, the Chinese economy has been developing quite vibrantly. And despite the fact that we are the second economy in the world, the per capita income is slightly more than $12,000 per year. But the contribution of China to the world economy is more than 300%. China has become a trade partner for more than 140 countries in the world. President Putin and Prime Minister Anwar have put a very valuable proposal on the table, which should be taken into account, and that concerns abolishing poverty in China. This will be a contribution to the development of the world economy, as it is, because the population is more than approximately 18% of global population. So cooperation and exchange and partnerships with other countries in the world are also always conducted on the basis of mutually beneficial ties. President Putin has pointed out that we need to stick to mutually beneficial cooperation, which is quite right. And as you all know, not so long ago, we conducted a third plenary session of the Chinese Communist Party, and a decision was taken to continue reforms of the Chinese economy, and China will continue along the path of reforms and will continue to expand its relations with other countries. China always regulates its relations with other countries, and I think that the development of China is a huge contribution into the development of global economy. Thank you. We are nearing the end of the plenary session. Vladimir Vladimirovich, we've been talking for approximately 3 hours about the way the Far East will look in the future. What is the most important factor for its development? Growth of the population growth. We have to create conditions, which we've been talking about today, in order to increase the birth rates and in order to attract young people to live and work in this region with such prospective future. And the last question I would like to address to all the participants of the discussion: what are the main challenges that our countries are facing today, and what are the potential response that countries may have? Shall we begin with Mr. Ibrahim, please?
The most senior in office is President Putin, out of respect.
Владимир Владимирович.
Спасибо.
Well, thank you. Well, the question is about the future, right? As to Russia, we have to provide for the development of the economy on the domestic technological foundation and basis with highly qualified and motivated, potentially motivated workers in the country. As to the development of the global south, we have to provide the world or global leadership in the economy, in the development of the economy, especially as far as the rates of growth are concerned. So the rate of growth in our country, this is what we are aiming at, and this is what we are going to achieve. The same question goes to you.
The economy. But how we view the economy is not unbridled capitalism of the past. It has to be a more humanistic approach towards development, which means, of course, economic growth, more investments, more trade, but at the same time, more compassionate, more care towards the welfare of people. Poverty, I think the Vice President has mentioned. Housing, the President Putin has mentioned. I think these are issues that have been largely ignored. So the experience in some countries in the West with phenomenal growth, but abject poverty and poor housing conditions, low quality education is not our option. So which means having a growth that is sustainable means that protecting the environment, having good housing, quality education, and also anticipating fast enough the pace of change in a post-normal times, that is a new direction in terms of training of our young in digitalization, in AI, with values which is in deficit in the world today. I strongly believe that we want to progress as a country, as a nation. We cannot ignore humanity, values, and ethics. It is a deficit in this world. That is why you see so many calamities, gross injustice, and racism, even fanaticism, atrocities committed in the name of religion, because we do progress what dehumanize ourselves. That is why I started by referring to a lot of great literary works of Russian figures, because they always emphasize issues of ethics, moral, and humanitarian ideals. Now, with that, I think we should learn from one another, and we should not learn the excesses of the past, particularly when it comes to gross injustice and continuing to grow but marginalize the society. Thank you.
Спасибо. Господин Джен, вам тот же самый вопрос, какие главные вызовы?
Mr. Jin, what are the challenges that our countries are facing nowadays? I'd like to say that the president of the country, Xi Jinping, pointed out that the society of common future for humanity is one of the most important challenges for the countries of the world, for the global population. We're all on different stages of development and have different issues of contention, but we need to build a society for common future. Thank you. Well, as far as I understand that we are rounding up our discussion, I would like to extend my gratitude to the guests of this discussion for the participation in this discussion and the attention to what is happening both in Russia and in the Far East. And I would like to address the auditorium. There are people here who work in the sphere of the economy or representatives of state enterprises. I'd like to say that I'm quite sure that entrepreneurship is above all creation of wealth and prosperity. And if we address it that way, we will be able to achieve all the tasks that we are setting before us. I'd like to thank you for participating in these activities and events, and I hope that we realize our plans in the future. Thank you. And on my side, I would like to quote you this time. So the priority for the 21st century is the Far East. Yes, I'd like to thank our moderator. Thank you for the wonderful job you did. Thank you.